Welcome to Unplugged, a segment of Unlearn the Crap and Level Up Your Soul is Calling. I'm your host, Kathy Baldwin. Today's episode is a personal one, and it's inspired by a TikTok that absolutely stopped me in my tracks. I was scrolling on my feed, and a video from Jon Fogel, someone I'd never seen or heard before, who's also known as @wholeparent, came up with a list of ways to essay-proof your kids. But what really grabbed me wasn't just his advice for parents. It was the realization that I had never learned any of this growing up. I started thinking about my own childhood, the rules and patterns I inherited, and how so much of what was meant to keep me safe actually taught me how to hide, to obey, to question myself. In this raw, intimate episode, I'm going to walk through Jon's list, point by point, and share how my own upbringing created the very crap that I've had to spend a lifetime unlearning. So whether you're a parent, a cycle breaker, or someone still healing your own inner child, I hope my story, combined with Jon's insights, sparks some new awareness for you today. Let's dive in. Welcome to Unlearn the Crap and Level Up Your Soul is Calling. I'm your host, Kathy Baldwin. And today's episode of Unplugged is going to be inspired by one of my guilty pleasures. One of the things that I love to do is to scroll TikTok. I love the way TikTok has created an algorithm that recognizes the things I like. And so my feed is always filled with recipes and jokes and education and new perspectives and all sorts of different things that just lights me up. Now, in the last couple of days, there's been a whole lot of brand new people that have been hitting my feed that normally wouldn't be there. And I've been blown away by the people that I've been introduced to. And this episode today, and actually tomorrow's Beyond the Interview, are all inspired by somebody I discovered on there. His name is Jon. His name is Jon Fogel. He's the author of Punishment-Free Parenting. And the episode or the video that I first saw of him that caught my attention was where he was talking about how to essay-proof our children. Now, I'm not raising children anymore. I'm turning 60 in a couple of weeks. I'm a grandma. My children are adults living their own lives. So there is no reason that this video should have hit my For You page, but it stopped me in my tracks for so many reasons. Now, one of the things that he did was he went through all of the things that we can do to essay-proof our children. And I realized at the very end that none of them had to do with how I was raised. I mean, we used to take, our kids used to be fingerprinted. Well, when I raised kids, we would go and create fingerprint banks so that if our kids were kidnapped, at least the police would have a file. And that is absolute insanity when I think about it, because what Jon was talking about was how we get our children to be empowered. And as I was going through his list, I was thinking, if I had have known this when I raised my children, which I'll talk about tomorrow on the Beyond the Interview, but today, if I'd have known this, Or if my parents had have known this, or their parents had have known this, I wouldn't have as much crap to unlearn. Now I understand we're a few generations in. I'm a Gen X, you know that. You know I'm turning 60 in a couple of weeks. The advancements that have come are so incredible. But the reason I wanted to talk about this is in my book, How I Unlearned My Crap. I connected the dots of the things that had happened to me and how it turned into my own unlearning journey, which was what I taught in the book, Unlearn the Crap and Level Up. But this was the stories. And so as he was giving these points, I'm thinking to myself that um, these are things that make a whole lot of sense. So let's go through the list, and I'm going to share some of my stories so that this is kind of an unplugged moment. It's also kind of the style of how I wrote the book, How I Unlearned My Crap. And hopefully this will be as empowering for you as a human, as an adult, or a parent, or someone who needs to reparent themselves. Because what Jon said was really, really dead spot on. Okay, so let's go over the list that Jon gave in this brilliant, brilliant TikTok. First thing he said is let your kids challenge you. Wow. Okay, so my father had the nickname the Captain. He had a plaque on the wall, engraved in brass. It said to the crew, please be reasonable and do things my way. Signed the Captain. Now, if you listen to my archetypes on masculinity or masculine archetypes, one of the ones I talked about was the tyrant or the dictator, the control person. That was my father. Now, he didn't do this maliciously. That was how he was raised. I'm pretty sure that was how my grandfather was raised, and on and on and on we go. So when I tell you these things, I'm not saying my father was a bad person. He was doing the very best he possibly could with the biggest open heart he absolutely had. But that didn't mean it didn't create crap in me, and it didn't mean it didn't damage me, and as sure as hell did not essay proof me. Because when I think about the fact that I wasn't allowed to challenge, everything was so controlled in my household. It was designed to create structure and create priorities. For example, I was not allowed to watch TV before 7 p.m. at night. Well, my parents worked all day. They came home, they poured themselves a drink, and they opened the newspaper. And then my dad would sit there and read the newspaper, and my mother would cook dinner. And we would all sit at dinner, and we were upper middle class. So we had a beautiful table, candles were lit at every single meal. Didn't matter if it was soup and grilled cheese or a 5-course meal. This was just what we did. And so when dinner was cleaned and put away, then TV could go on, because that was his priority. It wasn't mine. I wasn't sitting reading the newspaper. When I was coming home from school a couple of hours before him, I had already done my unwinding. So when I think about how he created rules that he felt were the healthiest and the best, they were designed for him. They weren't necessarily designed for me. And so I found myself sneaking behind their back. I remember my family were all smokers. I mean, everybody smoked. And I was determined to not be one of those kids that just went along with the crowd. I didn't want to be a follower. And so when my best friend offered me a cigarette at 16, I remember thinking, I'm past the age of feeling that it's peer pressure. Let me check it out. Well, the thing was, unfortunately, I was one of those people that was hooked and in love on my first drag of the cigarette. I loved it. Now, was that because my mother was a smoker while she was pregnant? Was it because it was built into my DNA? I don't know why, but I loved it. But I wasn't allowed to smoke, even though everybody around me did. My parents, my grandparents, friends, aunts, I mean, you name it, everybody smoked. And I would have to go and hide it. So when I think about the very first time that I was attacked, when I was 12 years old, and I was walking home from school, and 5 boys attacked me and told me they were going to SA me. And when I escaped, thank God, there's a whole story about it. I talk about the whole thing in my book. But what I felt was I was wearing hoop earrings. And when I saw my parents, actually, I saw my dad first, I did not tell him that I was attacked until I could get to a friend's house safely and remove those wanton earrings. The fact that my parents raised me in such a controlled environment did not SA-proof me. What Jon Fogel is saying is dead on right. I was afraid. I was afraid of the control. I was afraid to speak my mind. I was afraid of so many things. I was afraid of the pushback from my parents. And so I actually didn't have the best relationship with them because I was so busy trying to live up to their expectations of me. And I always felt like I failed. So Jon Fogel's number 2, he said, make sure your kids know they can talk to you about anything, that nothing is off limits. That never, ever happened for me. I censored because, for example, my mother was dead set against swearing. So even as a 40-year-old adult, I wouldn't even swear in front of her in a joke. If the joke required the word shit or hell, I would say S word or H word because I did not want to go against my mother. This was how ingrained that control was. So yes, making sure your kids know that they can talk to you about anything opens the door, creates safety, says that it doesn't matter what you're going through. I will walk the walk with you. I might not agree with you, but I am a safe place for you. Damn. What would my life have been like? How much crap would I have been avoided if my parents weren't trying to live up to these expectations of what they thought a good parent was supposed to be? Now, number 3, Jon says, don't say because I said so. Well, there's really nothing more for me to say about this one. It was said to me all the time. It was said probably to everyone in my generation. I've seen so many videos of people talking about what it was like as Gen X or Gen Y or whatever. This is how we were raised. It was about do as you're told, or do as I say, not as I do, or any of these other things. It was a whole different world. And God, when I'm reading and listening to what Jon is saying, I am blown away by how different it's going to be for our children as they're growing up. So point number 4 that he made in this video was let your kids say no. Can you imagine? Oh my goodness. I did not know that I was allowed to say no to anybody. Hence, I was multiply essayed because I did not know about boundaries. I did not know how to say no. I did not know how to enforce my protection. I didn't know any of this. And so when my central nervous system kicked in and put me directly into that fight, freeze, or whatever, I always froze or do the fawning. And it did. It did so much damage. It really did. So if you're thinking that no is not something that you want, I saw another, I'm going to regress because one of the other things that I heard him say in another video, and this is the perfect time for me to connect the dots, was he said that when your kids are having a temper tantrum, they're not regulated. They're not having fun. They don't want to have a temper tantrum. They don't know how to function. And so many times as parents, we think they're doing this to us. Well, how could you embarrass me like this? How could you talk back to me? All of these other things, we internalize it, or it was internalized, at least for me. But what if we just heard the perspective that they're having a bad day? They're having a hard time. They don't know how to say no. They don't know how to articulate. They don't know how to put their emotions into words. If instead of stopping our children from saying no, of talking back to us and all these other things, what if we gave them the tools to understand what emotions mean and what it's saying to us, taught them how to say no, what their boundaries are, taught them that their body is their body, which brings me to point number 5 that he brought up in this video, which was to teach them that their body belongs to them. That was not an acceptable thing for me. I remember that there was a family member who treated me very badly. And the person was an extended part of the family. But they made me very uncomfortable because I could feel their judgment, their unacceptance of me. But I had to pretend because they were family. And so we sucked it up for family. And so I would have to hug and kiss this person and pretend that everything was okay. And that negative feeling that would go in your body, that would just be screaming at you, you're betraying yourself, don't do this. I would have to learn how to suppress, how to shove it down, so that when I was in situations where I should have known what the signals were of my body, or I should have known what was okay and what was not okay. If I had have known that it was okay to belong to my own body, to have that autonomy, man, things would have been a whole lot different. And then the last point that he made. So tip number 6 for how to essay proof your kids is that it comes from true connection with your children, not control. And the same can be said right now for it comes from true connection with us to ourselves, not trying to control and suppress and deny and avoid, not trying to numb or pretend or live up to these expectations, that any of the crap that we were taught. We need to be able to trust ourselves. And that has to be what we teach our children if you're in child raising age. But if you're not, we can use these and reparent ourselves to help us unlearn our own crap. Because this is magic. This is beauty. This is amazing. This is everything that I'm trying to help people unlearn. Because the damage that we do, whether our children or us are S8 or not, these things that he's talking about that keeps our children safe are the very things that allow us to be autonomous, sovereign, empowered, independent, aligned. Oh, thank you, TikTok, for introducing me to somebody that I would never have hit my radar before because I'm not in the parenting role. But if you are, I highly, highly encourage you to go pick up his books. Go check out his website. I believe his handle is
I want your child to be.
His handle on TikTok is @wholeparent. I highly, highly endorse. I mean, I went down a rabbit hole with all the videos that he has. So I don't necessarily recommend a lot of things for a lot of people, but this is pretty awesome. And I think that he is a guiding light for the very things that we need to unlearn. But I still can't help thinking, what if? What if? How much crap would we have less to unlearn if this is how we were raised? This has been another unplugged moment with Kathy Baldwin. I'm your host, and this is a segment of Unlearn the Crap and Level Up. Can't wait to see you next time. As I mentioned, don't forget to check out my archetypes series on the Unlearn Curve, episodes out every Monday. And tomorrow's episode will be a Beyond the Interview with Mary Kay Garrett, where we talked about how to become the parent we wished we had been. And I'm going to share some of the stories and some of the things from behind the scenes that probably didn't get into that interview. And I will make sure to connect with you as well. I cannot wait for us to continue this conversation. I am so excited when I see people like Jon and the information they're giving out there on the difference that we are making in the next generation. And us, if we caught up, unlearning our crap, what a world. I'll see you next time. Until then, remember, challenge everything so that you can achieve anything. Thank you for joining me on this episode of The Unlearning Curve. I hope you enjoyed it. If something landed for you today, make sure to follow, like, comment, and share, and check out all the other full interviews and other episodes of Unlearn the Crap and Level Up podcast, where you'll find deeper conversations, expert guests, and real stories from people just like you who are unlearning their crap and choosing clarity. Visit me at kathybaldwin.me and get all my free resources. Check out my coaching programs as well as my books. Until next time, keep showing up, keep unlearning, and keep leveling up because your soul is calling.